Hi lovely soulmate, you're welcome to today's class. So in today's tutorial, I'm going to be showing you how to read a tape roll, okay? So basically this is what a tape looks like when you get it from the market. So now the very first thing I am going to do is to show you how to read this tape out. Now this is very important because as a beginner, you take your measurements with your tape, and if you do not know how to read this out, you will not be able to know the measurements you're taking or whatever you have, okay, for your client, and you won't also know how to place them on your fabric. So I'm going to be breaking them down in the very simplest form how to read your tape measure, and we're going to be focusing on the inch part, okay? So this is called the inch part and this is called the centimeter part. Now for the inch part, we have up to 60 inches on the tape. And if you're taller than 60 inches, okay, you can replace the tape like so and continue taking your measurement. I don't know if you understand what I'm saying. So if you want to also add this, it could be about 62 inches taking to this point, because this to this actually means 2 inch extra. All right, so I already have a book here that I drafted out the bars of the tape down so that I can explain to you further. Because if I use this tape, you might not be able to see properly. So I actually represented everything I got from here over here. So this to here is 1 inch, and from here to here is 2 inches, and from here to here is 3 inches, thereabout. So we continue like that till you get to your 60 inches tape roll. All right, so now looking at this right here, okay, looking at this right here, you would realize that this has a total of 8 bars per inch, okay? So we are going to be counting this here before we count that on the paper. So here we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay, I hope you can see that, but if you cannot see that, we're going to be going straight over to our paper right here. So let's look at the paper and count again. So from this point here, we have 8 bars. Okay, we're going to be counting again. This point is 0 inch, so I am not going to be starting from here. Just like here, when we get to 1 inch, you start from this point. Okay, so we're going to be counting 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. So when you get to this 8, it becomes 1 inch, and then you start all over to count again. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and then the last one is the big line which stands for the inch line. Okay, then you continue counting like that. Now, how do you now read the lines on this tape? Okay, how do you now read the lines on this tape? It is very, very important to be able to read the lines on this tape so that you can represent them on your fabric, on your client's fabric, on your client's body, and wherever. Okay, so now because these bars are going to be all over 8, so I'm going to be representing these bars in fractions. Okay, if I represent them in fractions, then we're going to be able to break them down in decimal points. So let's start with the very first bar of the first 1 inch that we have. So now this is the first bar, and since this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, we're going to make everything over 8. So the very first bar is 1 over 8. Okay, then this is the second bar, so we're going to have here 2 over 8. Now this is the third bar, so we're going to have here 3 over 8. And this is the fourth bar, so we have here 4 over 8. This is the fifth bar, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So this is going to be 5 over 8. And this is going to be 6 over 8. Well, this is going to be 7 over 8. And of course, this is going to be 8 over 8. Okay, So I hope you understand up to this point. So the reason I'm actually fractionalizing this is because as tellers, we use decimal points, okay? So whatever thing you have, you could have something ranging from 2.5. Someone would tell you, okay, that is 8.05, okay? Now, how do you get 8.05? First and foremost, we have to sum up the total numbers of these bars, making 1 inch, okay? And then we're going to be dividing them by the number of the bars. That's the total number of the bar is 8, okay? And we're going to use the first bar divided by 8. So that is the reason I had to put them in fractions. I hope you understand up to this point. Now, the next thing I am going to do, I cannot leave these fractions like this, okay? So I have to divide them to the lowest term. So how do I now divide them to the lowest term? I am going to be finding each of these fractions that actually can be divisible by 2. So let's start with the very first one here. So the first one we have here is 1/8. And of course, we know that 1 is an odd number, so it cannot go with 2. So we just leave here by this, okay? And then the second one here is 2/8. So 2/8, 2 can go with 2. So we're going to go ahead and break this down to the lowest term. So right here, I have 2 divided by itself, 1, and divided by 8, we have 4. So this is no more 2/8. We now have here 1/4. So the second bar right here has given me 1/4. So this cannot be further divided. So I'll just let it be like that. And then on the third bar, it cannot be divided because one is an odd number and the other is an even number. So we'll just leave it like that. Now coming over to the fourth bar, okay? 4 can actually be divided by 2. So I'm going to be dividing it. 2 divided by 4, or 4 goes into itself, is 1 and goes into 8, 2. Okay, so this is going to be 1/2. I don't know if you're following me. Please try as much as you can to follow me gradually so that you'll be able to understand. Now, for the fifth bar, I am not going to touch it because, of course, 5 cannot be divided, or 5 cannot divide 8. So we'll move over to the next bar, which is 6/8. And then I am going to be dividing this, okay? 2 goes into 6, 3, and goes into 8, 4. So we have here 3/4. So I'm going to be circling the answer so that you'd be aware of what we are doing. So this is the very first bar, and the second bar. This is the third bar. So this is the fourth bar, fifth bar. Now this is the sixth bar. So we'll go over to the seventh bar and we'll leave it like that, okay? I hope you can see everything I'm doing. Then the last bar right here, we have 8/8. So 8 divided by 8, of course, is 1. So we'll leave it like this. And I'm going to go ahead and circle this for you to see where the answers is. So I'm going to be writing them down on this other part right here so that you can understand the breakdowns that we have, right? I don't want us to use this point because it is too congested. You might not see which one is the answer, okay? So I'm going to bring them out here. So for the very first bar, we had 1/8. And the second bar, the answer we arrived at was 1/4. And then for the third bar, we had 3/8. For the fourth bar, we had 1/2. And then for the fifth bar, we left our answers at 5/8. Then for the sixth bar, we have here 3/4. For the seventh bar, 7/8. And for the last bar, we had 1. Okay. So now this is the answer we got from this point. I hope you're following, right? So now I am going to be dividing this. Remember I told you that as tellers, we go by decimals instead of fractions. But first I told you I had to bring them into fractions so that we can be able to line or number these bar lines, okay? So at this point right here, I have finished breaking them down to the lowest term, and the next thing I'm going to do is to go ahead and divide them so that we'll now put the decimals that we have on our tape as tellers what we actually use. So we're going to be putting them down here. So to divide this right now, We're going to be starting with the very first bar. So we have here 1 over 8. So I'm going to be placing my answers, my decimal points right here. The reason I'm doing that is I just don't want you to feel like everything is too packed up and you do not understand. Okay, so the very first bar has us dividing it, second bar has us breaking it down to the lowest term, and then the last bar has us bringing out the decimal answers. So 1 divided by 8, or 1 over 8 in decimal points, is 0.125. So the very first bar here is 0.125. So I'm going to be turning it upside down like so that I'll be able to place the decimal points facing this side. Okay, I hope you understand what I am doing. So the very first bar here is 1 over 8, which is 1 divided by 8, and my answer in decimal points is 0.125. So that means that the very first bar, or the very first bar line of the 1 inch that we have here, okay, is 0.125. Now the second bar is 1 over 4, and 1 divided by 4 is going to give us 0.25. So I'm going to be writing my 0.25 right here. So that is our second bar, 0.25. Okay. Now the third bar here is, the answer we had here was 3 over 8. And 3 divided by 8 is, in decimal form, 0.375. Now, the very next one we're going to deal with is the center here, which is 1 over 2. So 1 over 2 in decimal point is 0.5. Okay, so this is 0.5 in decimal point. And then the sixth bar right here, 1 2 3 4. Okay, the fifth bar right here, okay, is 5 over 8. And 5 over 8 in decimal points, when you divide 5 with 8, the answer you're going to get is 0.625. Okay, and then we move over to the next one here, which is 3 divided by 4. And for 3 divided by 4, we are going to have 0.75. All right. Then we have 7 divided by 8. That's for the 7 bar line. Okay. So for 7 divided by 8, we have here in decimal points 0.875. All right. And then for the 1 inch we had here, we're going to put it here. Now this basically means we've gotten to 1 inch of our bar line. Okay, so I hope you understand up to this point. Now we have done this on a book. I am going to take the tape and I am going to show you what each and every one of them mean using another paper. Okay, so I am going to be using the tape to represent this. Okay, let's assume this is our fabric right here. So having known how to break this down into decimal point, we also have to know how to represent them using your tape. So it's actually the same thing, but I'm going to break it down for you in case you want to actually measure this on your fabric or on your body. So we have here, let's say what I have here is 5 1 over 2, okay? And we said that 1 over 2 in decimal points is 0.5. So we have here 5.5. Of course, 5 1 over 2 is the same thing as 5.5. So this is what 5.5 looks like, right? So they say I am taking a measurement and it drops at this point right here. So what do you call here? This is 5.5. Of course, this is what a half looks like. So this is 5.5. Using the Taylor language, which is actually the decimal points, we're going to have here 5.5. Now, why do I have 5.5? Of course, I know that half, okay, is 0.5, and 5 plus 0.5 is going to give me 5.5. So it is very easy to say that this tape placed here to this point is the same thing as 5.5. Now, if your tape, or if you're taking your measurement, and it gets to this point, it stops at this point, okay? I hope you can see properly. If you take your measurement and it stops at this second bar line, this is the same thing as saying 5.25. I hope you are following. If I take my measurement and whatever I have stops at this first bar line, and then the inch is at 5, so I can say it is what? 5.1. Do you understand? So that is the Tello language. You rather say, instead of saying 1/8, you can say 5.1. And over here, the second bar line, I will say 5.25. Okay? On the third bar line, instead of saying 5/3/8, which is very abnormal, okay, as a teller, I can decide to say 5.3. Okay, so since it is basically 5.375, of course we know that we're going to round our 7 and it's going to give us 5.4. So if it is at the third bar line, I'm going to be having 5.4. So let me represent it right here. Okay, so we're going to be using 5 inches right here. Okay, 5 inches, and I'm going to be telling you 5. Okay, full 5. This is the very first one. This shows that this point right here shows it is at 5 inches. Okay, the second right here, that's the very first, after the 5 inches, the very first bar line shows that this is what? 5.12 or 5.1. Okay, so that is the very first one. The second bar line shows that this is what? 5.25. The first one was 5.12 or 5.125 or 5.1. You just can decide to leave it like that. Okay, the second one is 5.25. Now the third one is going to be 5.4. okay, the reason is 5.4, of course, this is 5.375. So I'm going to be rounding my figure up here to give me 5.4. So right here, I have 5.4 inches at this point. So whenever you are taking your measurement and it ends in this particular point right here, just know that it is what? 5.4. Now, if you're taking your measurement and it ends at this point right here of the tape, okay, this point right here of the tape, the answer is going to be, or how you're going to read that particular measurement is going to be 5.5. I hope you're getting everything that we've done so far. Now, when you read your tape and whatever measurement you take stops at this point right here, okay, which is number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, which is the 5th bar line. So you're going to say that this is 5.6 or 5.62. That is how you're going to represent that measurement on your measurement book so that you'd be able to place the tape. I hope you understand. And then we move over to the 6th bar line. Okay, so at this point, I am going to say is 5.75. So that means if you're taking your measurement and your measurement gets to this point, it is called 5.75 in the Tello language, okay, which is decimal point. Now we move over to this other bar line right here. This is actually the 7th bar line. So if I'm placing my measurement, or if I'm taking my measurement on a client and then it ends at my 7th bar line. Okay, so if it ends at this point, what am I going to call it? 5.87. And then after this last bar line, which is 7, the next bar line we're going to have is the inch bar line, which is going to take us to 6 inches. I hope this is actually very easy for you to understand. So I don't know if there is any question so far. I am going to be going back on what I did. I'm going to try to bring it up again in case you do not understand what I'm saying. So having represented this, showing you how to first of all number our bar lines, that's for the tape. First of all, you cannot turn this into a decimal point, okay? First of all, you have to make it a fraction before you are able to divide it so that you're going to get your decimal point. So I number the bar lines, which are 8 in number, and then each bar line divided by the total numbers, okay? So the first bar line divided by 8, whatever I had here gave me the answer here, okay? And this is me breaking this down to the lowest fraction. And after that, I had to divide it to get my decimal point. And I brought our tape right here to represent all these lines, okay, right here. And I used 5 inches. So assuming that you were working with 5 inches, what does each of these bar lines represent in decimal points? And how do you represent them on your own measurement book? And I said that to do that, this is what you're going to have right here. So the very first bar lines represent this one, second goes to this one, the third this one, like so till we get to the last, which is 6 inch, and that is going to give me 6 inches. So this is the simplest method to read your tape measure. To read the tape measure is very important, because if you cannot read this tape right here, you've not even started your journey as a tailor. Sometimes tailors who do not know how to read this measure, they actually make mistakes with getting accurate placement of this measurement on their fabric, because if you do not know that there is something called 5.2, you might go ahead to make mistakes when dividing your measurement. So it is very, very important to learn how to read your tape. Has been helpful at some point, please click on the subscribe button, like, share, and comment. Let me get to know what you have learned from this tutorial and how I can be of help to you. And of course, thank you very much for watching the tutorial. See you in the next beginner series course. Bye.